ברוכות הבאות, ladies. ברוכה הנמצא. Thank you so much for coming out tonight on a Tuesday night to listen to Divrei Torah. We want to thank the hostess with the mostess, Tova, for this delicious spread. You killed me with the Chinese. Wow. And the salad, who brought the salad? You? Ashrayich. In any case, we have a lot of work to do tonight. But before we begin, I have to make a couple of announcements that you guys are going to think I'm strange for making them, but I promised some people, and I also want the name of the person. Yeah, we're going to do that soon. Yeah, we're going to do that soon. Every once in a while, I feel compelled to give a push for certain businesses that I feel really went above and beyond. Today, if someone does a service for you and they do it with integrity and honesty and with good customer service, and they didn't, rip you off, and they took care of you nicely, it deserves to be said. So here I am giving credit to two companies. Number one, to a leasing company. I just leased a new car. So I want to extend my thanks to Bayrish from Signature Leasing, who is incredible. Signature Leasing is one of the best leasing companies I ever worked with. They care, they're polite, they take care of you from A to Z. I didn't have to go looking for insurance or anything like that. They looked for me, they did everything for me. They were cordial, they were polite, they were considerate, he was caring. Everybody took care of me with silk gloves in that company. So anybody who...
Which company?
Signature Leasing. Before you call them, call me, so that I can tell you to tell them that I gave the recommendation, so he knows that but anyway, that's number one. So thank you so much to Bayrish from Signature Leasing, who mamish did an incredible job. Anybody who wants to lease a car, you go to Bayrish and you tell them that the Rabanit K Sarah Cohen recommended him, and he'll be happy. Number two, if anybody needs computer work, this IT company, IT is the people that service your computers. Sometimes something crashes and you need help. Or even if big companies need IT people, technicians. I want to extend my thanks to Shlomo Gerardi. He's a Temani. You know who Shlomo Gerardi is. Your daughter-in-law is a brother-in-law. Exactly. Shlomo Gerardi from Prime Tech. Incredible service. Such honest people. Such amazing people. So if anybody out there has computer issues, even if you live across the globe, they can remotely log on to your computer and help you solve issues. If you have a company anywhere here in the tri-state area, they'll service you. Best company. Prime Tech, Shlomo Gerardi, thank you so much. Okay, and now we're going to extend the refuah. This shiur is going to be for the refuah shlema of Tamara bat Zilpa and Efrat bat Oshra. Both of these.
And
Mordechai ben Goltach and Mordechai Dov ben Chana.
Olga
Osnat bat Tamara Zilpa. And Yitzhak ben Sarah. Yeah, and I have to have someone in mind. 1 minute.
My list.
I have a big list. I'm telling you.
Hashem knows your list.
And Mark. And just Yosef ben Rosa.
Yosef ben Rosa.
Liba Miriam Geula bat Leah.
Liba Miriam Geula bat Leah. They should.
Margarita bat Mazal.
Margarita bat Mazal. I think we should have a whole shiur.
Yes.
Just it could be a whole shiur. Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should extend the refuah shlema bimhera to all these people and grant them a life filled with health and prosperity.
Amen.
Ladies, this week's parasha is Vayeira. Now, one of the strangest and most disturbing episodes in the Torah Kedosha, is found in this week's parasha, right before the destruction of Sodom. Two angels arrive at Lot's doorstep in Sodom. Lot showers them with hospitality. He invites them into the protection of his home. And it doesn't take long, however, before the evil residents of Sodom learn of the Malachim's presence, and they surround Lot's house, demanding that the strangers, who are the Malachim, be handed over to them. Now Lot wants to protect his two guests, so he confronts this screaming mob, and he starts to reason with them. What does he do? You're not going to believe this. He offers them his two unmarried daughters instead of the guests. Wow. Now, of course, you understand what they wanted to do with the guests if he's offering the two daughters. Meaning, you understand what's going on over there. You understand? That was part of the problem of what was going on in that city. A lot of homosexuality. So Lot wants to hand them over his two daughters. And the Sodomim refuse his offer, and they're preparing to storm the house. They don't want the daughters, they want the guests. And at that moment, the angels afflict the attackers with blindness, and they tell Lot that he and his family, they have to escape the city if they want to live. Got to run away. So here's my question. How should we understand Lot's bizarre behavior? Such strange behavior. I mean, he welcomes these two strangers into his house, but then he's willing to sacrifice his own daughters to mob violence, to a pack of evil sinners. Does this story here provide us with a glimpse into Lot's personality? So in order to understand the depth of what's really going on over here, we have to back up a little bit. And when we do back up, we're going to discover a pattern that starts to emerge. A pattern that spans a few prakim and allows us to understand Lot and his frightening journey. So where does the story begin? Our story begins when Avraham Avinu alav shalom and his nephew Lot have to part ways. There's a dispute between the shepherds of Avraham Avinu and Lot, whereby Avraham turns to Lot and he says, Al na tehi meriva beni uvenecha, uven ro'i uven ro'echa, ki anashim achim anachnu. He tells him, let's not allow an argument to take place between you and me, or between my shepherds and your shepherds, because we're like brothers. He says, Halo chol haaretz lefanecha. Behold, look, the entire land is before you. Hiparedna me'alai. He says, please separate yourself from me. Meaning, go away. And he tells him, Im hasmol ve'emina. If you go left, I'm going to go right. Ve'im hayamin ve'asmela. And if you go right, I'm going to go left.
It's Lot said?
Avraham said that to Lot.
Give him a choice.
Lot is given the opportunity to live anywhere in the land of Canaan, which today we know as Eretz Yisrael, and he chooses the fertile fields of the Yarden. That's where he chooses to live. And the Torah then tells us something very interesting. It says, Vayeira ad Sodom. And he put his tent until Sodom. Now, two things immediately grab my attention. First of all, the Torah HaKadosha uses the word Vayeira, and he tented. It uses that word to describe Lot's relationship to the land near Sodom. Bless you. Now, this is a very strange lashon to use, because generally speaking, when the Torah wants to refer to a residence in a particular location, the words that are used are either lashevet, which means to live, that's the Torah's words, or the word lagur, which means to dwell. But in this case here, the Torah chooses a very transient term, to tent. Why? That's number one. Number two, secondly, the words ad Sodom, ad, until, is a very ambiguous word. Seems strange in the pasuk, because Chachamim tell us that the word ad can mean two things depending on the context. It could mean up to and including, or sometimes it can mean up to but not including. Understand? Ad could be till here plus more, or till here and no more. Could be both. So by saying that Lot tented ad Sodom, the Torah is leaving his situation a little vague. Well, is Lot in the city, or is he outside the city? The pasuk seems a little unclear. So the Torah is going out of its way to convey a feeling of uncertainty on Lot's part, as to what his relationship is with the city of Sodom. We don't know. Is he in the city or is he outside of the city? And the reasons for his hesitant state are made very clear in the next pasuk. Why don't we know? Is he in the city or is he not in the city? Why? Because of what the next pasuk says. What does it say? Ve'anshei Sodom ra'im ve'chata'im laHashem me'od. Because the citizens of Sodom were very evil people and sinful towards God. In other words, Lot is very, very aware of the true nature of the city. He knows who they are, the people in there. And he consciously chooses to tent at its border. He literally has 1 foot in the city and 1 foot out of the city. Because Lot actually believes that he can live on the edge of Sodom without being affected by its evil. And in the next perek, what happens? Lot is taken captive during a war involving Sodom. Abraham saves his life. And the next thing we know, the pasuk says, Vehu Yoshev Besdom. Oh, and he, Lot, was living in Sodom. Oh, this is an important piece of information over here, because it's telling us that Lot is no longer living at the edge of the city, at Sodom, like he was before. Instead, he's now in the city of Sodom. Besdom, not Adsdom. See, at first, Lot seems a little sketchy about the idea of living there. But now he seems very comfortable to live there. And then finally, we meet Lot again when the two malachim come to the house. And this time the pasuk tells us, and Lot was sitting b'sha'ar Sodom, in the gates, at the gates of Sodom. Ladies, what you need to know is that only specific people had the privilege of sitting at the gates of a city during those times. Usually, the elders and the officials of a city used to sit at the gates. Only important people used to sit at the gates. So we see that at this point, Lot's transformation is complete. He moved from the edge of the city to the center of the city. And now he's considered a respected elder of this evil city. The same man who felt that he would be able to withstand the temptation of the city fell prey to its power. So now that we have the background information, now I gave you the background, we can try to understand the strange and inexplicable behavior of Lot when he's confronted by this angry mob outside his house. Ladies, you should know that Lot was not an evil man. He was a weak man. You know the difference between the two? Some people are not bad, they're just weak. His most fatal flaw was his failure to recognize his own weakness. Strength means to know you're weak. You have to know to say, oh, I'm weak, so you can strengthen yourself. Lot believed that he could withstand the temptations of Sodom. But without realizing it, he got sucked in and his life began to change. So the Torah is telling us straight out, you cannot live near Sodom and remain unchanged. It's not possible you're going to live near a city like that and that it's not going to affect you. Lot is now at the most crucial stage of his life. He's trying to reconcile the contradiction that's taking place inside of him, because on the one hand, he's desperately trying to hold true to the minhagim that he saw in Abraham's house. And that's why he welcomes his guests so warmly and he treats them so royally. He's even willing to go to any lengths to protect them. But at the same time, he can easily cross over into that horrific world of Sodom by offering his two daughters to an angry mob. And he knows what the brutal end of his daughters are going to be. So the Torah is telling us that Lot fails because he believes that he can live in two worlds at the same time. In two worlds which simply cannot coexist. You hear where I'm going with this? Ladies, this is a tremendous yesod. Lot's story is a lesson concerning the effects of the external environments that we live in. We have to be aware of the world that surrounds us, and we have to actively reject those elements that don't seem compatible with our Torah standards. Sometimes this is very difficult because the power of the outside world is very strong. But even more frightening is the fact that outside influences have already penetrated our communities, our homes, our hearts, and our neshamot. Chachamim tell us, you're not going to believe this, that in every country there is a city or cities that's just like Sodom. Meaning it's not just about the immorality that confronts us today. It's the traits, the attitude, the core and the essence of a Sodom-like world in our generation. So my question is, what's a Sodom-like world? What does it mean? I'll tell you what it is. It's a world that rejects compassion and replaces it with cruelty. Because where else can you be penalized for having guests than in Sodom? If you had a guest, they would hang you if you had a Shabbat guest. Where else could you be put to judgment for sharing your meal if not in Sodom? We know about the story, remember, of that girl who borrowed the salt, miskena. She loaned her salt actually to a neighbor. They hung her up on the tree, put honey all over her for the bees to come. Why? Because she loaned somebody some salt. Miskena. Where else can you fear execution for being kind towards someone if not in Sodom? If you were kind to somebody, if you did to somebody a chesed, goodbye. But we have to ask ourselves, hasn't this kind of attitude infiltrated our hearts? How often does it happen that we hear somebody say, why did you invite her over? Don't you want a little peace and quiet? Why don't I invite her to Shabbat? Did you make enough food? You don't have enough food to feed 3 more people? That's the attitude of Sodom. That's the attitude of Sodom. Ladies, Vayeira at Sodom means that we shouldn't place our tents of holiness anywhere near the attitude of such a city. It should never get to the place of Ad Sodom. Even being on the edge of such a trait, of such a characteristic, of such cruelty is a problem. Ad Sodom means that you shouldn't think that if you're simply on the edge of some influential circumstance, that it won't change you and it won't affect you. Oh, we're just sharing a wall. Nothing's going to happen if there's a wall between us. And we know walls can come down. Because, look, it only took a transition of one pasuk, for Lot to go from tenting near Sodom to living there. Just one pasuk, that's all. Therefore, we have to be mindful of a heartless attitude that leaves people around us feeling dejected, left out, sad, alone, and unworthy. We should be mindful of an unfeeling approach that doesn't allow us to reach out to other people. We should be careful of that fine line where we're literally sitting on the edge of a cruel remark. It's about to come out of your lips. That's ad Sodom. Where we're tenting on the border of a hurtful action. That's ad Sodom. Where we're on the tip of speaking Lashon Hara. It's the tip of our tongue. That's ad Sodom. Ad Sodom means that if we're at the edge of some kind of Sodom-like attitude, most likely the next thing we know, we're going to adapt that attitude and we're going to fail. We cannot be on the border of Sodom and not be influenced by its evil ways. It can't be. Therefore, you have to be careful, ladies, and keep yourselves very, very, very far away from the mindset of Sodom. You with me? Good. We're moving on. Ladies, we find two dramatic events in this week's parasha. The destruction of Sodom ve'Amorah and Akedat Yitzchak. Now, I want to discuss Abraham's strange reaction to these two events. When Avraham Avinu, alav hashalom, finds out that Hashem was going to destroy Sodom, he argued with Hashem in an attempt to change his mind about destroying Sodom. But when Hashem commanded Avraham to sacrifice his son, he's silent and he's obedient. Here's my question. Why does Avraham react to the nisayon of the Akedah with this deafening silence? Where's the Avraham that we all know? The man who argued with God, who struggled with Hashem at every stage of life, and he was willing to accept the world the way it was. Where's that Avraham? All the Chachamim are baffled by Avraham's sudden silence, and the Midrashim try to fill in the blanks of that silence. So the rabbis explain that it's not that Avraham was not affected by the commandment of sacrificing his son. Deep down, he was torn by the job that lay ahead of him. It was like a job. Because after all, he was a father that was moved beyond measure by compassion and love for his son. He was also the first Av. And he's now struggling to reconcile Hashem's promise to him that through Yitzchak, a holy nation is going to blossom. So listen to this, ladies. The Midrash Tanchuma, it's very powerful, presents us with a detailed description of what was taking place when Avraham was on his way to the Akedah. It took him 3 days to get there. We're told that while he was journeying there, the Satan disguised himself as an old man. You hear this? You know what this means. The Satan can be in the form of a human being. I just said that to you, right? Midrash Tanchuma says he came in the disguise of an old man, and this old man starts arguing with Abraham, and he says to him like this, the Satan says to him, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to the Akedah. I'm going to sacrifice my child. Hashem told me to do it." The Satan tells him, "Have you lost your mind? Are you nuts?" He isn't saying, "Are you nuts?" I'm saying, "Are you nuts?" He said to him, a child is given to you after 100 years, and you're going to go slaughter him? You know what's going to happen tomorrow? God is going to accuse you of murder, and then you're going to have the blood of your own son on your hands. That's what's going to happen. But Abraham isn't persuaded by the Satan, who continue to put stumbling blocks of all sorts in his way. And we read the Midrash and we could feel the profound internal struggles that took place inside of Abraham's neshama. But the Midrash tells us something fascinating and very deep. Listen to this, ladies. We're told that the Satan comes in all different ways. He could come as a human being. He can come disguised in something, like it says that the Satan turned himself into a raging river. He has the power to change himself, his disguises. He's the master of disguise. We're told that in this case, the Satan that confronted Abraham was not just in the form of the old man, but it was none other than Abraham's own shadow. What does that mean? Abraham's own shadow was the Satan. It means his own thoughts were fighting with him. That's a type of Satan. And those thoughts were telling him the following: Abraham, after waiting so long for a son, now I'm going to lose him by my own hands? How could a God who promised me yesterday that through this child a great nation will flourish, how can he command me to kill that son? Can God change his mind so easily? And if yes, maybe he'll change his mind tomorrow. The Midrash tells us that even with Abraham's own thoughts, his own fears and his own struggles, his own insecurities, it didn't move him from the proper path. Deep down, Abraham was so shaken up, and yet against all odds, he carries out the Ratzon, the will of Hashem. So the Midrash is painting a very complicated picture of Abraham's inner struggles. And yet my question still remains. Why is it left up to the Chachamim to fill in the blanks for us? Why is Abraham so quiet? Why can't the Psukim tell us what was going on in Abraham's heart and in his mind? Why does the Torah tell us that Abraham argued with Hashem to save the city of Sodom? He argued in defense of Sodom, but when it came to the Akedah, he was quiet. He didn't say a word. He could have told God, how could you tell me to do this? Nothing. Hashem tells him, Kachna et bincha et yechidecha asher ahavta et Yitzchak ve'aleu leola. What's the next pasuk? Nothing. Vayashkem baboker. He gets up early in the morning. We don't hear him arguing. We don't hear him talking to Hashem. We don't hear him complaining. What happened? Few prakim ago, you were arguing with Hashem. Please, Hashem, save the city of Sodom. What if there's 50 tzaddikim? What if there's 45? What if there's 40? You were arguing. Now you're keeping quiet. So maybe these two events, they represent these two separate ways in which Hashem relates to us. What does that mean? I'm going to share with you, ladies, something very, very deep. It's written in very holy books. Very deep concept. You see, when it comes to Sdom ve'Amorah, for example, Chachamim tell us that Hashem was operating within the realm of Din. It's pure judgment what happened to Sdom ve'Amorah. You hear where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
But Hashem's commandment concerning the Akedah, that's not within the realm of Din. Now we're entering a world called Nisayon. And that's a whole other world. When Hashem relates to man in the world of Din, for example, everything's going to make sense to you. Everything makes sense in the world of Din, of judgment. Why? Because you could clearly see the cause and effect. You see the consequences of your actions. So you know, ooh, I hurt somebody, then somebody hurt me, oh, I understand. I understand why. So it's clear. So Hashem tells Abraham, the people in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, they're evil people. And the consequence of such an evil is that they deserve to die. Oh, that makes sense. That's din. That makes sense. Nachon, it makes sense? Yes or no? Okay. So we see that in the world of din, it's a little easier to understand why God brings judgment. Because there's a natural cause and effect. Right? Therefore, as long as we remain in the world of din, you could argue with Hashem. You could debate with Hashem. You could still try to change his mind. In fact, Hashem wants you to argue with him. Why? Because maybe you're going to come up with some logical argument that's going to convince Hashem to move from the world of din into the world of Rachamim. Maybe you're going to recite one more tefillah that can change the din to Rachamim. Maybe you're going to beg one more plea on behalf of somebody. And that might just tip the scale from judgment to mercy. You understand the concept? The Midrash says that that's the reason why Avraham took the liberty of arguing with Hashem in defense of Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, because in the world of din, makes very much sense. They behaved a certain way. They deserve a certain consequence, so I could argue with Hashem. But when Hashem brings us into the world of Nisayon, very little makes sense in our eyes. Doesn't make sense anymore. Things appear very hazy, very unclear. Even Hashem himself is hidden from us sometimes. In the world of Nisyonot, there's no noticeable logic to Hashem's actions. We don't understand it. In other words, in the world of Nisayon, things don't make sense and we have a very little understanding of Hashem at that moment. So in the world of Nisayon, to argue and to debate with God, it's pointless because you don't understand anyway. You hear what I'm telling you? If you don't understand anyway, what are you going to argue with Hashem for? It's like going in front of a judge, and the judge gives you a nisayon, a clap on the thing, you know, and you start arguing with the judge. You don't even know why the judge did what he did, and you start arguing. The judge says, keep quiet. Better to keep quiet. You don't even know what you're talking about. So it's pointless to argue with Hashem when we're in the world of Nisayon. Listen, we know that there are reasons to Hashem's decisions. That we know. But because we're now in the world of Nisayon, we cannot begin to understand those reasons. And that's the difference. Our challenge when we're faced with a Nisayon is simply to pass the Nisayon. That's all. We have to respond to Hashem's will with dignity, with faith, with the application of that faith, and with an unwavering commitment and loyalty to God. That's all. And that's why Avraham remained silent when he was commanded with the Akedah. Because he realized that he just entered the world of Nisayon, Olam HaNisayon, and that challenge was going to be a little different. You see, Avraham was able to distinguish between those two worlds, Din and Nisayon. He was able to see the difference between Hashem's logical decision to destroy Sodom and the inexplicable commandment to sacrifice his son. Therefore, Avraham is able to react to each of these enormous events in the right way. He knows, when it concerns Sodom, I can talk. When it concerns Akedah, I can't talk. But you and me, we are not able to make such distinctions. We are not able to know. We're not on the level of Avraham Avinu. We never know whether a particular circumstance in our life is coming from the world of din, or if it's coming from the world of nisayon, or maybe a combination of both. We don't know. Therefore, the lesson for us is that we're supposed to react to every challenge and every situation in life on both levels at once. What does that mean, both levels at once? Well, it means like this. Since you and I don't know what is in fact din and what is in fact a nisayon, guess what? Chachamim tell us, since we don't know, we're allowed to debate with Hashem whenever we want. We're allowed to daven, we're allowed to beg, we're allowed to argue for compassion on behalf of ourselves, on behalf of those we love, on behalf of all of Am Yisrael and the entire world. We're allowed to. Because we don't know if it's din, nisan, we don't know. So that's a good thing. But at the same time, when we finish davening, and we finished all our arguments and begging and crying, we have to turn to Hashem and accept His will with love. And then we have to daven again. Except this time, we have to ask Hashem to give us the strength to pass the nisayon when we're pained by the lack of understanding. Because not understanding something pains you a great deal. When you don't understand something, it creates even more pain. So we have to daven to Hashem for strength to be able to pass that nisayon. Which nisayon? Not just the nisayon that you're in, but the pain that you feel because you don't understand why you're going through what you're going through. That's also a nisayon, not understanding. You hear this?
Powerful.
Very powerful. That's a nisayon. Not being able to understand is a nisayon. So it's like a double nisayon. You're in the challenge itself, and you're not understanding that challenge. You're not sure where it's coming from. Is it coming from the world of din? Did I do something that I deserve this? Or is it just a challenge that Hashem is putting me through so that I could surpass it and elevate myself to the next level? I don't know. I don't understand. And when I don't understand, it hurts. Now imagine you pass with flying colors on both ends.
You win the mega million.
Ooh, the mega millions! Ding, 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 ding. I'm talking Vegas style. Lahavdil elef alfei avdalot. Okay, so that's lesson number 2. Moving on to lesson number 3. Very deep concepts, I'm telling you now. Chachamim inform us that during Avraham's time, many parents sacrificed their children to the Avodah Zarah. They would take the child and throw them into the fires. And Avraham was against this despicable act. He actually gave the people musar, and he convinced them not to commit this heinous act. And as a result of this musar, many people stopped sacrificing their children, Baruch Hashem, because of Avraham. But guess what? It's very interesting that right when we're told about Avraham's mission to stop all those parents from committing those horrible acts, suddenly Hashem commands him to take Yitzchak and to bring him up as a korban. How ironic is that? This is a dramatic moment. It's a very big test.
He passed.
It's a very big test. Because yesterday I was telling the people, you cannot sacrifice your children like this. And now today I'm going to go sacrifice my own child. Think about it. Now, Avraham has to go sacrifice his child. And Chachamim tell us, well, why is Avraham different from all the other martyrs in Jewish history. There were many Avrahams in our history, ladies. Let's discuss the era of the Crusades. The Crusades were holy wars, holy, I put that in quotation marks, that were imposed by the Christians primarily against the Jews, claiming that they were killing us in the name of Yeshu. The Goyim, they forced many Jews to convert to Christianity, to bow down to idols, and to worship the cross. Lo alenu. Well, let me tell you something, ladies. Do you know that the Rabbanim of that generation made a halachic ruling that Jews should take their babies and kill them? You know that? Why? Because the Rabbanim said it would be better that these infants should die as Jews and be accepted into Olam Haba rather than risk the chance of growing up and turning into devout Christians and as a result be escorted into Gehenna. So the Jewish parents took their children and they killed them. Can you believe this? You tell me, this is not an Akedat Yitzchak? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Well, how come we don't discuss these martyrs of long ago? Why is Avraham the one that's considered the person who did this amazing act of faith? This act of self-sacrifice was also seen during the times of the Holocaust. While Jews were marching to the gas chambers, the tefillah of Shema Yisrael was on their lips. During the times of the Inquisition, thousands of Jews died al Kiddush Hashem, and they allowed themselves to be burned at the stake. This is not a Akedat Yitzchak? Yes or no?
Yes.
Dying for the sake of our religion is not something that's new to us. To die for Torah and for Hashem, that's a very Jewish concept. So what made Avraham's test of sacrificing Yitzchak so significant? That it was considered, the ultimate sacrifice. I'm going to explain with a story. There is a story told of the Kajnitzer Magid, Alam Shalom. He was a very holy man. A woman once came to him desperate to have children, and she asked him for a bracha. After he thought about it, he said to her, I'm very sorry. I wish I could give you a bracha, but it's not the right time yet. So the woman was so upset and she started to argue with him. She says, what do you mean? I came for a bracha. And again he said to her, I'm very sorry, but it's not yet the right time. But when he saw how desperate she was, he told her a story about another woman who once came to the Baal Shem Tov, alav shalom, for a bracha to have children. And he says to her, I'll tell you a story. He says, a lady once came to the Baal Shem Tov for a bracha to have children, and he gave her the same answer I'm giving you. He told her it's not yet the right time. And this poor woman left feeling very sad. Now the Baal Shem Tov was a very big tzaddik, and the lady had a lot of respect for him. But this woman was very poor, and she had only 2 coins left to her name. So she thought to herself, how did I go to the Baal Shem Tov to ask for a bracha and I didn't even offer him a gift? I came empty-handed. But what was she going to give him? She was poor. So she took the only 2 coins that she had left and she bought a piece of fabric. And from that fabric, she sewed the Baal Shem Tov a robe. And one day, when the Baal Shem Tov was on his way out of the town, she ran after him. And when the Baal Shem Tov saw her, he said to her, I'm sorry, but I already told you that Mina Shamayim, it's not yet the right time. So the lady says, oh, I know it's not the time, but I just felt badly that last time I came empty-handed, so I made you a robe as a gift. Here, please accept this. When the Baal Shem Tov heard these words, he said, I know how poor you are, and yet you went out of your way with such self-sacrifice just to make me a robe. I give you a bracha that even if it's not yet the right time, you're going to have a child. Sure enough, that year she gave birth to a baby boy, he tells her. And the Kuznetsa Maggid is now looking at the lady in front of him, and he says to her, I want you to know, I was that little boy. I was the baby that was born from that bracha. So the woman was shocked. And she says to the Kuznetsa Maggid, she says, Rabbi, I'll sew you 3 robes. Just please bless me. I should have a baby, please. So the Kuznetsa Maggid says, you know what the difference between you and my mother is? The difference is that my mother didn't know this story that I just told you. When she made the robe for the Baal Shem Tov, she didn't know this story. But now that you know this story, you're going to want to sew 10 robes. But my mother was the innovator of the story. That's what makes her so special. She was the first. That's what made Avraham so special. Avraham didn't know the stories of the Inquisition when he put Yitzhak on the Mizbeach. He didn't know the stories of the Crusades or the Holocaust as he walked to the Akedah with Emunah. We know the stories, so we know what to do when our religion is compromised. But Avraham was the first. Before him, such a concept didn't exist. So he was the trendsetter. He set the Jewish way in motion for generations to come. That's what makes him so special. It's because he was the first, like the Kuznetsa Maggid's mother. You understand? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Because of that, Rav Chaim Volozhin Alav Shalom wrote that just like children inherit from their father physical wealth, like money, a house, or a business, a child also inherits from the father the spiritual qualities of the father. Rav Chaim Alav Shalom quotes a pasuk from Mishle, where Shlomo HaMelech Alav Shalom says, Mithalech betumot tzaddik, a man that walks in the righteous path, Ashrei banav acharav. You see, Ashrei. Fortunate are the children that come from such a man. Why? Why? If my father is a tzaddik, if my father walks on a righteous path, why am I the fortunate one? He's the fortunate one. Why me? You know why the child is fortunate if the father was a tzaddik? Why? Because the child is going to inherit the tzaddik's genes.
You would hope so.
The genes. After the father dies, he gives his children spiritual powers and all the traits that he acquired in his life. And that's an amazing concept. So when Avraham Avinu passed the nisayon of Akedat Yitzchak, he was the first to create this concept of tremendous self-sacrifice for Hashem. It was from him that all the Jews throughout the generations inherited that gene of great sacrifice, of self-sacrifice. You hear this? Anybody who after that killed their child during the times of the Crusades, or sacrificed their child during the Holocaust, or like we read the story of the children of the Volga River. Did you ever hear that story? The children of the Volga River?
Yes, the children who jumped from Switzerland.
The children who were by that Russian river, and the Tsar wanted to convert them all and With Christianity, they take them to the river and they baptize them in the river, and they're all by the river. And they knew that the Tsar is coming to see them being baptized. And they all went into the water and they never came out.
Wow.
They killed themselves, these little children. Well, where do you think all these Jews got the strength to be able to do this? They received their strength from the source. מתהלך בתומו צדיק, אשרי בניו אחריו. Because the father was righteous, he was able to transmit this to the children after him. So Abraham was the greatest because he created the concept of pure emunah and going after Hashem no matter what happens. So if you and I are able to make sacrifices in life, and I know each and every one of you is making sacrifices. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't have to put a child in the mizbeach to make a sacrifice. We know who made a sacrifice, right? We know some people, putting on a kisei rosh is a sacrifice for some people. Keeping Shabbat for some people becomes a sacrifice for them. People who close their business on Shabbat, for them it's a financial sacrifice that they're taking. So if you and I are able to make sacrifices, it's because we had a forefather named Avraham who mastered this concept. The lesson of Akedat Yitzchak is concerning a man that had tremendous faith, and he gave us that special power of emunah. We inherited that spiritual gene from Avraham. If we're still standing today, if we're still choosing to remain loyal despite the challenges of this generation, it's because of this great man. Avraham Avinu and his son Yitzchak taught us the essence of being devout followers of Hashem. So I want to end the shiur with the words that the Ramban, alav shalom, writes concerning the end of the Akedah, after it was all over. Where we know that Hashem stopped Avraham, right? He told, don't touch the boy. Don't do anything to him. Now it's all over. Says the Ramban, when it's all over, says the Ramban, listen what he says. He's Kiya'an. Asher asita et hadavar hazeh, Hashem says, because you have done this thing, Hashem says. What's this thing? You actually put your son on the mizbeach. You were going to kill him. You actually picked up the knife to kill him. You were going to do it. The Ramban says on this pasuk, that from the beginning, Hashem promised Avraham that his descendants were going to be like the stars in the heavens and like the sands on the shore. Meaning we would be many. There's many of us. But after the Akedah, Hashem added something to the package. A bonus. Avraham received a bonus. What was the bonus? These words. Ya'an asher asita mahaseh gadol kazeh, says the Ramban. Now that you did this great act of Akedat Yitzchak, shenishba b'shmo hagadol, Hashem swore to Avraham on his own name, meaning not, like sometimes it's a joke. We swear on somebody else. I swear to you on my mother's life. What are you going to bring my mother into this now? Miskena, especially if you're lying. Anyway, but Hashem swore on his own name to Avraham, Sheirash zar'o et sha'ar oivav, that the Jews will overcome their enemies, והובטח לו שלא יגרום שום חטא שיכלה זרעו, which means even if the Jews will commit the worst sins, Hashem guaranteed Avraham that the Jewish people will never cease to exist. The Jewish people will always achieve, and no goy will ever be able to eradicate us. Before Akedat Yitzchak, there was no such guarantee. No such guarantee. We could have been destroyed before the Akedah. Hashem just guaranteed, you're going to be many, like the stars in the heavens, like the sands on the shore. But it's possible that if the right enemy came along, it could be all over. But after the Akedah, it says, Hine haftacha shlema begeula atida lanu. At the end of time, when the Jews are going to be in a serious predicament against their enemies, which is now. As a result of this episode of Akedat Yitzchak, we have the guarantee that we will not cease to exist. There's always going to be a Jew in the world. At the end of the day, Am Yisrael is going to be left standing. The Ramban says that we have a guarantee from Borei Olam that we will succeed. We will be triumphant. And just like the Pasuk says, Yemin Hashem Romema, Yemin Hashem Osa Chayil, V'Yisrael Osa Chayil. We are always triumphant. We always succeed. And you see it in Eretz Yisrael. We have a corrupt government in Eretz Yisrael. They are Chilonim. They don't even keep the Shabbat. Netanyahu, it's interesting. Look at this. When other diplomats, they come to Israel to meet with Netanyahu for the first time, they put a kippah on their heads. And he greets them without a kippah. You would think that the representative of the quote-unquote Jewish state would come to the United States representing the Jewish state. Let me see a kippah on your head. Let me see tzitzit. But he looks like any other secular leader in the world. When the Arab leaders come to the United States, do they not look like Arab leaders? Are they ashamed of wearing their turbans on their head and covering their head the right way, like Avraham Avinu did? That's where they get it from, with their robes and their garbs. They even carry their carpets with them underneath their arm, just in case it's time to pray, and they'll stretch that carpet anywhere in the middle of the highway if need be. Are they embarrassed to do this? No, but we are. But we're still standing. And you see, even in a situation where we have a state that doesn't represent Yahadut the right way, somehow, some way, when those Scud missiles come flying towards Eretz Yisrael, what does Hashem do? He reroutes them, He redirects them, He smashes them, He destroys them. Sometimes you see even situations where right before they send the Scud, boom, the Scud explodes in the territory of the enemy. This is all Hashem's promise to Avraham because of the self-sacrifice of Emunah, that he went blindly, without questions, silent. And that's the guarantee. Am Yisrael will prevail, and Bezrat Hashem we're going to merit to greet the Mashiach, Bekarov Mamash. Amen Ken, Yehi Ratzon.